What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, here we are. It is the start of the Apertura. Again, the new Apertura season beckons for all the Paraguayan teams involved. Obviously, we'll talk about the chances of many of these teams and their chance to win the first division, some teams that could indeed become a surprise package, and also some teams that could fight out relegation as well, because obviously we have some teams that have been relegated and now have come back from the Intermedia as well. So we're going to see if their chances of staying in the first division remain the same. So yeah, let's go to Fede first over there in Paraguay. Obviously, speaking on the day that the Apertura begins, we got two games happening this Friday with Emiliano and Nacional and Olimpia taking on Sol de America, the returning Sol de America, I might add. So I guess I'll ask, how's the vibe for you? How's the vibe over there, for Paraguayans that they're ready to see their league restart once again?
Football is finally back in Paraguay, Roberto, and I'm taking it like that. Yeah, I'm happy that football is finally back. I'm so tired of watching old games and repetitions or watching European football. That's what we do here in the summer. You don't got much more than that or friendly games. Even though this offseason we didn't have that many friendlies. We people couldn't go to any friendlies of their clubs. So I think people are really anxious to go back to the stands. It's going to be a sweaty one because it is the hottest time of the year here in Paraguay. We had tournaments that started other years in February. This one's starting out pretty early in January. We'll see how players handle that situation. Preseason was long enough, I believe, but you got 3 games in just 1 week. So we'll see who comes out alive after these first 3 games pretty much in just a week. As of this past week, we definitely got to mention Julio Enciso's situation. Saw someone having a great time with his family in Paris, and it wasn't Ralph Hannah doing it on his birthday. It was Julio Enciso doing it with his family in style. That was beautiful to see. The pictures of him taking his family to the ceremony, and yeah, he was almost there. He was one step away from that stage. I wanted to see him get on that stage, obviously win the Puskas Award, but hey, the Puskas can wait, right? I'm sorry. Oh, it was in London? It was in Paris? I thought it was Paris because Thierry Henry was there. I thought it had something to do with France and stuff like that. Well, sorry about that. But anyways, it was good to see him there, Julio Ciso. I think it's great for him to get this kind of exposure, to put himself out there in the map, especially. And what he has coming really soon. I mean, he's got to go back to playing, and that's what I want to see. I don't know why he's taken this long to come back. I don't know if he's had certain problems in his recovery or what has happened, because we were said that he would come back by this time around. So I'm waiting for that situation. And obviously we got to talk about this kickoff of the Apertura. Roberto, Ralph, I'm really looking forward to this tournament. Cerro, Olimpia got to step it up. They got to catch up to Libertad, who I think is the #1 candidate again. But we'll talk about that. We gotta take our predictions today. We gotta throw them out there. I'm waiting for Roberto's. I'm definitely waiting for Ralph's also. I want to hear what you guys think of this upcoming opportunity.
Yeah, obviously, going back to the Puskas Award, Ralph, obviously it was really unfortunate that we didn't see Julio Ciso win it. Obviously, he had some shades, and we saw it even on Twitter. The reaction kind of reminiscent of Nadia Ferreira losing Miss Universe back in 2021, kind of a robbery, you would say. But ultimately, hopefully that motivates Julio even more, because yes, he is hopefully going to come back to the pitch for Brighton Hove Albion very soon, obviously playing in games in the Premier League. You got the FA Cup. You also have the Europa League that they're in. They're in the round of 16. So obviously for him, especially for a side that is with a lot of injuries actually at the moment, I think Julio returning in the best form possible would be great for him. And, losing this Puskas Award would probably be big motivation to score another worldie like he did against Man City last season. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the beginning of the Apertura, because we've seen some teams make some interesting moves, some teams who perhaps haven't also reinforced as well. And yeah, I think it's going to be one that hopefully won't be as straightforward as seasons past, but hopefully will give a paint a picture for a lot of these teams and how they can manage the entire year.
Yeah, that's right. Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. Firstly on Julio, it was a shame, but it wasn't an overhead kick from outside the box, which eventually won the award, right? That was pretty cool. Although it wasn't against Man City, the other goal. But hey, I think it was nice to see Julio, and what I understand with his injury is that they've actually like gone back into the meniscus like tear to redo something to strengthen it further. I don't know. That's why it's taking longer than they were hoping, because he was already training right without the ball. But now, before he got into ball work, they've done some extra stuff, so that's set him back a few weeks. And then onto Apertura. I think, yeah, what I'm really looking for this year, I don't know if you guys feel it, the last couple of seasons, we haven't had that really surprise, like runaway team at the beginning that isn't Libertad. You know, there's usually another team that gets off to, that can surprise you. Like Guarani did one year when we thought like maybe they were going to do something crazy and win the title. Trinidense kind of did it a little bit as well. But that's why I wanted to see, like maybe Dos de Mayo, who have been promoted, they seem to have bought a lot of players. So that would be interesting to see if they can do something. Maybe Taquari, they just staved off relegation, but now they're getting all these high profile foreign signings. And so is there a team that's going to like shake things up a bit outside of Olimpia, Cerro, Libertad, but take points off those big teams? And then that could make things a bit interesting. So I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for in these first 3 weeks, because we've got, well, I say 3 weeks. The first 3 games come up in a week, because we got this weekend, the midweek, and then next weekend. And so after just 3 games, maybe we'll see one team as surprised as all and taken 9 points, and it's not Libertad, which I'm hoping to see, just so we get a bit of competition in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go into those real quick now, Fede, because obviously with the start of the weekend, I think we got a really interesting matchup to kick off the season. We got like the aforementioned Sportivo Trinidense taking on Cerro Porteño, and we got Guarani taking on Libertad. And I want to start with them because obviously Libertad are the reigning champions, the team that have kind of been the team to beat in Paraguay at the minute. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team can really move forward, and ultimately how a side that has been really been good so far in the domestic league hasn't really been dismantled as much. You know, we did see some players come in. We saw Alejandro Silva coming in to Libertad as well, Miguel Jaquet as well. And, you know, I think this is something that, you know, for a Libertad side that just continues to get stronger and stronger. Even when they're losing some key players, they just continue to find the way to go on and try to win this league. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Ariel Galeano, you know, manages this in his first full season as a professional, well, as a first division manager. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen to him. And yeah, I think this is going to be the one for Libertad's case where they only not have to perform domestically, but they have to do something internationally as well, because they're keeping the base of players that have helped them dominate a strong league like Paraguay. They need to now do something over there in the international stage.
You're always hoping for that situation, for them to do something international, especially in Libertadores, where you think that they might have a good team to make it to the latter stages. But they didn't have big signings. I mean, I think Libertad's strategy lately, and I think I said it on the first episode, has been kind of looking at their opponents and seeing what they have locally and take away their best players. Probably they've done it with Olimpia, they've done it with Cerro Porteño, they did it back in the days with Guarani also. And you know, you see right now Cerro and Olimpia having budget problems, having problems to be up there with the level that Libertad is showing. And it's not just about the players that they have, it's not just about the budget, it's also about the way the club is managed, right? I mean, from the food the guys are getting, from the nutrition, from everything they need in a club to be a professional football player. I mean, they do it European style in Libertad, and that's one of the only clubs I would say, maybe Cerro Porteño, but since they got their stadium back and with the new gym and with all the facilities that they have, maybe they're pretty close to Libertad. Olimpia had to do the same thing just a couple of years ago, renovate their whole training center, also new gym, because Libertad was outdoing them. It wasn't much because in Libertadores they weren't getting the results. It was because here locally Libertad was really taking a leap from them, and you could see that with these last titles. Also, I mean, it's shown on the pitch. They've been the best team, and Olimpia has been with their struggles, settled with the same situation, always running second, not having enough. And Libertad keeps their main players. They keep their best players. They didn't let go of best players. They have a couple of injured players at the beginning of the season, just like they did last year. But I don't think they're gonna fill those players at the beginning of the season. I don't think they're gonna miss them. But I have my doubts around this coach. He's way too young, and I don't think he's gonna do the perfect job that Garnero did. Garnero knew exactly what the kind of players that he had. He knew exactly the kind of style that he wanted to play, and he had a lot of experience also on the local league. I think all of those were advantages this new coach does not have. That's why there was even doubt that he would start the year. There was even rumors that that Libertad might get a new manager, but that wasn't the case. They stick with him. So I want to see how they show up these first games. I want to see how well they do, and I want to see if it's the same Libertad from 2023.
Yeah, exactly. I think you touched on a great point about Ariel Galeano because he has been a coach before, by the way, but maybe it was in Intermedia because I think it was in Santa Ni Dos de Mayo, I think. So he has had a role before, but never as this high profile. And it's a totally different situation. When he picked up the team, they were already, kind of cruising towards the title, and he just helped them on their way with a lot of help, by the way, by a very experienced person in Sergio Aquino. Don't forget Sergio Aquino. I think he's won the most titles in Paraguayan football, playing mostly for Libertad. And he's being kind of the assistant. And he has the respect of all the players, the more senior players, because he's done it before and he's won so many titles. So it's those two that are kind of guiding the ship. But yeah, it's a totally different situation because what I'm interested to see is, does Galeano want to try and impose his own style, right? Instead of using Garnero style, is he going to try something different? They have recruited very well in terms of Jaquet is a great defender, I think. I mean, he was Nacional's best player when he was there before he left to Argentina. And then bringing back Elvio Vera and Ivan Franco, we spoke about it in the last episode. Those guys are two quality players that they can also bring in. So I think they have that really good base. And then, of course, there's all the young players. And remember, Ariel Galeano comes from the youth teams. So he knows which of those young players are going to be the best suited. And so you have someone like Amin Molinas, we might start seeing this year, getting more game time. So there's going to be a few interesting changes there, but it's a much bigger challenge. And then you look at the rivals, right? Cerro and Olimpia, and really, in a way, Cerro is a similar situation with the coach, is an interim coach, or has always been typically an interim coach. And now they're giving him the chance at the beginning, right? Instead of Cerro didn't go out and get another big name or foreign coach, which maybe they might have done. They've decided to stick with Bernay and try and do something with him and continue that. Well, we saw kind of good form at the end of the season. The difference with Cerro is they've sold their best player. They brought in some good talent, but not everybody they wanted, because we talked on the last show about Thiago Vecino and he didn't show up. He's gone off to Mexico, I think. So Cerro maybe aren't in as good a shape in terms of they wanted to be with their squad. And then it leaves Olimpia, which is really interesting because Olimpia has Chiquias. So Olimpia has the one coach that really, apart from Garnero, has been the best coach in recent times in the Paraguayan football. So and for whatever reason, Chiquias couldn't get it to work last year, but now he's had his preseason a bit more time. You wonder, like, is Olimpia then going to probably pass Cerro because of that coaching situation and with players coming back like Luis Gonzalez? But do they have enough for Libertad? And I think what we're all waiting to see really is, does Libertad slip up? I think that's the way we see it, right? If Libertad just play within their kind of level or more or less, as well as they can do, not even 100%, they can still win the league. So it's more like, will they slip up? Will there be problems? And we're going to see with a good test against the Guarani team that's very young, right? Guarani has gone in a totally different strategy in recent years of just trying to sell players. And so I think they were saying their average age could be around 24, 25 for some of the games. It's going to be a really young team as they try to do something totally different.
And I guess going into that, obviously looking at some of the teams that could indeed, ruin the party for Libertad that has been going on for quite some time. We look at Olimpia, we look at Cerro. Olimpia, obviously, in a case, Fede, where they're kind of dealing with kind of I wouldn't say an institutional crisis, but certainly something of instability right now where, they don't have a president. There's still some rumors of possible return for Marcelo Recanata, the controversial club president for many years ago. You look at a team that is still going through some issues with FIFA. And you look at Cedro, a team that, again, they have to see what they can do with Victor Renai. They did look as impressive as they could, or at least, a hot and cold side in Colombia when they did their preseason tour. You saw how Iturbe was able to do well, but they still have no number 9. They weren't able to get Valdez from Uruguay, it seemed. And yeah, I mean, are those the two teams that you think will pose Libertad that issue, or do you feel that someone else might go in and try to do something?
The thing with Olympia is, Ralph was mentioning, they did the preseason now with Chiqui Arce, but are the players going to be available on time? The new signings, the Lucas Prato, because they were able to sign players, but kind of late in this transfer window or right before the Apertura started because of the situation that you were talking about. They needed to get that sanction off of them, and we talked about it on the last episode. They were able to do it on time. They were able to sign a whole bunch of players, pretty much a player in defense, one in midfield, a couple of players to attack. They lost a whole bunch of experienced players in that locker room, so I want to see how the leaders show up in this team. I mentioned it on the last episode also, the level that we'll see from Derlis Gonzalez. He can be, if he's on top shape, he can probably be the best player in the Paraguayan league. You're going to need a Richard Ortiz totally healthy and playing most of the games, because Marcos Gomez is with the under-23, going to play the Preolímpico. They're going to miss a couple of players, just like Cerro Porteño is going to miss a whole bunch of players that will probably be on the starting team also. But looking at it from Olympia's side of it, they lost their best defender, who was Mateo Gamarra, and they're going to have to put somebody in there. They brought in Hugo Benitez, who was playing for Ameliano. This was a player that has been in rumors that he was going to go back to Cerro Porteño eventually, because he did his youth leagues there, or he was going to be brought by Chiqui to Olympia. He gets his big chance now in a big team. We'll see how he does these first couple of games, because there is going to be competition. Even for the attacking players also. I think these first couple of games, we might see a lot from Guillermo Paiva, who did not have a good season last year. He barely scored goals, and there's going to be a whole bunch of players lining up to wait for that spot. Even Kevin Persahouk, who was also with the under-23, going to play the Preolímpico. He will be back eventually to try to fight for a spot. You got Ivan Almeida there. You got Lucas Prato, who we might see him in the third, fourth game eventually when he's healthy and ready for competition. So Chiqui Arce now has a whole bunch of new names you want to see, but I want to see the comeback of a lot of these players that I did not see their best version last year. I mean, Hugo Fernandez, I'm talking about Guillermo Paiva again, players that in midfield did not produce. So I don't know. In these first games, we're already going to see that big change from Olympia. I think we're going to see the real Olympia by around week 5, maybe by the Super Clásico, I would even say, Roberto. And that could be kind of late if other teams have a good start, like Libertad or Cerro Porteño. So it's going to be really interesting just to see who is really ready for the competition, or who is going to need a couple of games to really get into shape and into their best form.
Yeah, and Olympia have to hit the ground running against a Sol de America, which, although they've just been promoted, Sol de America is traditionally a strong team. They always seem to recruit well, and kind of they have a good base of players. And so you think like they can, in that first game, they can also test Olympia. And remember, Olympia aren't using their home stadium for the first, I think it's 3 months of the season, because they're relaying the pitch. So, or, they don't have that home advantage. I mean, they kind of have home advantage playing in Defensores because they've got the most fans, but it's not quite the same as.
It wasn't an advantage last season, Ralph. It was more like pressure last season.
True, yeah. They've had that time. They used to have a time 2 years ago when they had that run where they just kept losing at home. But yeah, we have to see. There's all these factors kind of playing in, and then I think Roberto kind of linked to it off the pitch when Cardona is not going to stand for president, so they're going to have to find a new president, and that's always complicated compared to Libertad and Cerro. So we compared a little bit the head coach situation, and maybe their Libertad and Cerro are similar. They're also, Libertad and Cerro are very similar in the president situation, the ownership, because they both had the same people or the same family in charge for a long time, whereas Olympia has always gone between kind of almost like rival factions, right, within the institution, depending on which side of the board of directors they might be. And so that can always be difficult because they want to choose different players, or maybe not different players, but different coaches, or sometimes putting sporting directors which they've tried and hasn't always worked. So that you get all this change in the kind of front office of Olympia because that ownership moves around a lot, whereas there's been so much more stability in Libertad, Cerro, and even places like Guarani as well. So that's a big kind of challenge I think we'll see as well with Olympia, all these moving pieces, and is Chiquiase able to steady it? And usually he is, if we're honest, right? He's been the manager that can get people together and get people playing to his style and the way he wants to do it. But we also know with Chiquiase is if he doesn't like things above him, he's going to go, because he's done it to Cerro twice. He's left them. He did it to Guarani. He's done it to Olympia. I mean, he just had a one season there. So you could also see after 5-6 games, if things aren't going well with Olympia and there's all this instability, you could see Chiquiase say, well, I'm not going to keep going with this if it's not to my liking. So there's so many question marks, I think, with Olympia as we head into the season.
Yeah, there really is. And then looking at some of the teams that could indeed surprise guys, I think, you look at teams like Tacuarembó, who just signed the likes of Orlando Berrío, who has experience playing over there in Colombia, in Brazil. I mean, this is something that Tacuarembó have kind of been building on, that you always see those surprise packages. And I want to go to Ralph on this one. I mean, you look at the likes of Sol America, Luqueño. I mean, we can even say them as well as perhaps kind of a team that could shock, but what do you think on this end? Because I would personally pick Tacuarembó, but I'm curious to see if there is another team that could indeed shock some people, get some results, and maybe have a really good finish in their league to put them in contention to, I wouldn't say even go for the title, but also to qualify for some international competitions.
Yeah, and I think
Tacuarembó this season, you say?
I'd say so. I'm gonna say it.
I think Tacuarembó is a really interesting situation because they've brought in a lot of foreign players and a lot of high quality players. Although remember, they only just avoided relegation last time. I don't know. The team of those teams, the one I like the most, you can't say Trinadense is a surprise because you're in the Libertadores. So I think Luqueño has got a lot of kind of a good base of players to work with, but also with Julio César Cáceres, they've got a good manager who's won titles before. They're in the Copa Sudamericana again, right? So they have this chance to actually build a good atmosphere, build some good culture there, and start kind of moving together and moving forward. So I think Luqueño could do something interesting with Tacuarembó, but the problem is they have done this before. I mean, not to the level of Berrío, who's been a very good player, but remember, I think he's been playing in China, right? So he's coming back. Yeah. You never know how they're going to kind of come back into the league, what kind of form they're in, what kind of motivation they have. But yeah, they have done this before, Tacuarembó, with some Brazilian players who basically don't do anything because they haven't been maybe motivated or it hasn't kind of fit together. So I don't know if I pick them. I think I'll pick Luqueño as a team that could really do something a bit different.
You're going with your heart there, Rafa. Yeah, obviously, if you put Luqueño on another team, you're going to go with Luqueño. It's really hard because there's a lot of teams that I don't know what I'm going to get from in these first games. I mean, Guarani has a coach that I don't know anything about, so I don't know how they're going to play. That's a team that could surprise. That's always a natural candidate, but they didn't sign players to be up there with the three natural candidates, which are Libertad, Olimpia, Cerro Porteño. Which is the other team that's really going to be up there? Is it going to be really Trinidense again? They didn't have the same clausura as they did in the Apertura, so I'm not waiting for them to have a great season, to be honest. I think they'll have problems. Dos de Mayo is a team I actually love the way they played and the kind of players, the way they managed the team. Also, they have a really young coach with Felipe Jimenez. He could actually surprise a whole bunch of big teams, especially when they have to travel to Pedro Juan Caballero. That's a long trip. And they actually played really well at home last year in second division. So why not root for them? I'm going to go with Dos de Mayo, Pedro Juan Caballero to be one of the surprises. this season, especially in this Apertura. I think they're going to carry that momentum from Intermedia and have really good games in this Apertura. They signed a whole bunch of players, like Rob said, but they kept a lot of players also from that campaign in Intermedia. And another team, Kenya had the pressure until the end of the season, Rob. I don't know if they're going to be have the same thing again in 2024, having to wait until the end of the year to know if they're going to stay in first division or not again. Emiliano lost their coach. I don't think they're going to have a good season with Pedro Sarabia. He has not done well with his teams lately. So I'm going to go with Nacional. I think Nacional could be another team that could be up there fighting with the big teams. They had a whole bunch of signings, and they're pretty much building a new team, especially to attack. They lost most of the creation in that midfield that they had last year. So we'll see what we get from them in these first games. But I like Pumpido as a coach. I think he builds really good teams. He's done it before. I think he'll do it again. And he took the top scorer also from Intermedia. I saw that they signed Aldo Gonzalez, who's 27 years old, wants a comeback. And, these are the kind of names that might surprise you. Sometimes they signed Bruera a couple of years ago. They signed another Argentinian now, or center forward. So you never know. They could get that lucky player or that good player, unknown player, to be the X factor or the difference maker. So I'm going to go with Dos de Mayo and Nacional as the surprises, Roberto. That's the answer you wanted.
That is the answer that I got. I love it. I love seeing all these kind of, picks being spread around the board. I think it's going to be hopefully a season where you're going to see those surprises, but hopefully it won't be as straightforward as one would think. But of course, all our eyes are what's going to happen to the Apertura champion, because certainly this is the season where Libertad could indeed three-peat. It's been a while that we've seen Libertad. I don't think they've ever three-peated, or it's been a long time that they've had. Just double checking here real quick, it hasn't been done in quite some time, at least in the Apertura Clausura formats. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can do something that only Olimpia have done beforehand, guys. So let's just go straight into it. Do we see a three-peat for Libertad? Are they going to win the 2024 Apertura, or will some other team try to go and ruin their party? Ralph, I'll go to you first.
It's really hard because everything kind of points to that they will do it. I think they must be the favorites. I don't know. I haven't seen any betting odds or anything, but I would assume they're the favorites going into it. But then there's a question mark, as we just said, about Galeano, and also the fact that no one's ever done it before. And is this team really as good as some of those teams that have been around there before? It's very tough. But I think I'd still will go with Libertad, because I can't see Olimpia or Cerro doing enough. And they're the two rivals I see, right? They're the two. I can't see them doing enough to bring Libertad down. So I think I'm going to go for Libertad. But it'll be close. They won't run away with it.
I'm going to go in first as well. I think, it's going to be really tough. But ultimately, I think the way that the team has been performing, the way, Olimpia and Cerro really haven't reinforced the big ability that Libertad has in terms of quality, I think it would be very hard-pressed not to pick Libertad. I know it's a boring answer, but I don't see how it's going to be any other team but Libertad. I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope that we do see some sort of surprising. Of course, for me as a Cerro fan, I'd love to see Cerro win it, but I have to be honest. I have to look at what I see, and I see Libertad winning this one. So, Fede, what says you? Do we see a three-peat for Libertad this time around?
Well, I'm feeling the pressure, guys. I don't know about you guys, but I got both of my picks last year right. I said Libertad in the Apertura. I said Libertad in the Clausura. So I was really thinking this one through these last couple of hours, because I know Roberto's going to put you on the spotlight right before the start of the season. So I'm going to go with, obviously, Libertad is going to fight it. Cerro Porteño is going to be in the fight. But I believe, just like Rob said, if there is a coach that right now between all three of these can make a difference, it's going to be Chiqui Arce. And they were able to sign really good players right on time. I don't think we're going to see the best Olimpia in these first games, but I do think eventually Olimpia will be a very competitive side, and they will win the big games, which are the ones that make the difference in a league like this one, especially when you pretty much your competition are just two teams. So Olimpia. I'm gonna go with Olimpia in this Apertura. I hate when it's the same team winning and winning. So forget about Libertad. They had their 2023 season. It was a dream come true. They won everything. Give it to somebody else now.
Wow, wow! I can't believe it. You're going for Olympia. You're going for GTR's side. That's, I mean, it's not bold, obviously, because they are amongst the favorites. But to see that sort of change. I mean, look, if your predictions are right, that what you did last year. I mean, if you're an Olympia fan listening, you might be in some luck. Put that money in. Put some money in on Olympia winning the 2024 Apertura title. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, just before we go off the air here, we do want to mention that the Preolímpico also begins this weekend. We got to see some Paraguayan players who are on these teams won't be available in action within the next few weeks because they are participating in this competition to qualify for the Olympics. They got Argentina, the first game in Venezuela, to hopefully get their chances to qualify for the Olympics in Paris. So obviously, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the start of the Apertura. And yeah, I'm looking forward to also discussing it every week here on Guarani Vision. So for myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.